On October 23rd, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP leader Xi Jinping, successfully took his third term in office and unveiled a new leadership team led by his close circle. Now we're taking confident strides on a new journey to turn China into a modern socialist country in all respects, to advance toward the second centenary goal and to embrace the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation on all fronts through Chinese path to modernization. But the reshuffle of the Chinese leadership has spooked foreign investors. The next day, on October 24th, Chinese stocks suffered their worst day in Hong Kong since the global financial crisis in 2008, as foreign investors rushed to sell Chinese stocks. Nearly all the stocks in the Hang Sheng index were lower, with Chinese internet and technology stocks being hit particularly hard. Shares of Chinese tech giants Alibaba and Tencent closed down more than 11% in Asia. Shares of online search company Baidu fell 12%. And food delivery company Meituan fell more than 14%. Shares in music streamer Tencent Music, e-commerce platform Pinduoduo, and mobile game publisher Bilibili fell between 13 and 17%. Education companies New Oriental and Gaotu Group each fell about 11%, while electric car companies NIO, Xpeng, and Li Auto fell between 10 and 11%. Meanwhile, the yuan depreciated sharply, hitting a 14-year low against the dollar in the onshore market and falling through the 730 to the dollar mark offshore. It reflects concerns that if the economic situation in China deteriorates further, the yuan will continue to weaken. So far, in 2022, the yuan has fallen more than 15% against the dollar, on track for its worst year since 1994, when China devalued the yuan by 33% overnight in a so-called market reform. The leading financial data provider in China, WinData, shows that foreign investors are eager to exit from China's domestic stock market. On October 24th, they withdrew 17.9 billion RMB, equivalent to $2.5 billion through the Stock Connect channel. It's the largest single-day outflow since the trading link was launched in late 2014. Previously, investment immigration consulting firm Henley & Partners estimated that about 10,000 high-net-worth Chinese tycoons, or people with assets of more than $1 million, will migrate out of China in 2022, taking with them about 4.8 million per person, for a total of $48 billion out of China. In the second half of this year alone, Tencent has seen more than $7 billion worth of investments pulled. Japan's SoftBank withdrew massive amounts of cash from Alibaba, and Warren Buffett cut his stake in BYD. On October 24th, the Chinese government also released data showing that China's GDP grew 3.9% year-on-year in the July-September quarter. This data, which is difficult to verify as to how true it is not enough to cheer investors. In China's domestic stock market, which is tightly controlled by the CCP, the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index fell 2%. The tech-heavy Shenzhen Stock Index fell 2.1%. Stocks in the travel, leisure, hotel, and restaurant sectors, those affected by the zero-COVID policy, also fell sharply. In countries such as the UK and the US, a huge market reaction could force a policy shift or even overthrow an entire government. But China, under a communist regime, is different. Analysts generally expect China's economy to slow in Xi's third term, not primarily because of the labor force demographics, productivity, real estate, etc. that drive growth, but because of the CCP's regressive economic policies. At the recent 20th Communist Party Congress, the report abandoned its past slogan of focusing on economic construction and put national security in a more important position. It emphasizes the importance of integrating development and security. The zero-COVID policy is an example of security over the economy. The CCP's ideological and so-called national security considerations trump all other considerations. There are fears in the public that the CCP will prioritize ideologically driven policies, including the dynamic zero-COVID policy, at the expense of private sector growth. The shadow of the epidemic has been hanging over the country for 3 years. This was the city of Fuzhou on October 24th, where Chinese news reported a new outbreak due to social gatherings. Millions of people were asked to line up in the streets for nucleic acid tests as part of a dynamic zero-COVID campaign. This is Xinjiang, which has been under lockdown for more than 70 days. The centralized quarantine camps here are expanding in size. Moreover, to the horror of China's wealthy population, the 20th Party Congress revised the party constitution to include common prosperity. A previous phrase in the party constitution that read, "encourage some regions and some people to get rich first," has been removed. It signals more sectors of the economy, especially the financial sector, may be clamped down on in the future, and that many wealthy people would have to worry about their wealth and personal safety. Xi himself and his associates make up 5 members of the Politburo Standing Committee, with the remaining 2 seats going to former party leader Jiang Zemin's group. This setup has revealed to the public the lack of recognized market-oriented economic reformers at the top of the CCP. As part of the CCP's leadership reshuffle, Xi's close ally, Shanghai Party Secretary Li Qiang, is expected to become premier next year, assuming the number 2 position in the CCP. Li Qiang oversaw the implementation of a zero-COVID policy in Shanghai this year and imposed a 2-month city lockdown. He has no previous experience as vice premier. Therefore, his appointment as premier will break a long-standing tradition of the CCP's selection of premiers. He will replace outgoing premier Li Keqiang. The current premier, Li Keqiang, is an official who was seen as market-oriented and was sidelined from the top echelon of CCP power at the 20th National Congress. The party secretary of cities and provinces are the most senior officials of jurisdictions, but they are party officials, not government officials such as mayors or governors. Below the party leader, the second tier of power is the 7 members of the Standing Committee of the Politburo. After the 20th CCP Congress, the Politburo Standing Committee is comprised almost exclusively of party officials who have no experience or proven track record in economic management. As we introduced in the last episode, there was a group of officials under former Communist Party leader Hu Jintao, known as the League faction, to which Premier Li Keqiang belongs. Wang Yang, the former vice premier in charge of the economy and current chairman of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, is excluded from the core of CCP power. Hu Chunhua, another current vice premier who was widely regarded as a potential candidate for premier, was not only not included in the Standing Committee but was also stripped of his 2 terms as a member of the Politburo, leaving him with the title of Central Committee member. These changes are evidence that the League faction under former CCP leader Hu Jintao has completely lost its place in the core power circle of the CCP. The current premier Li Keqiang has a PhD in economics from Peking University. In 1998, he worked as the vice governor and acting governor of Henan province. 7 years later, the economy of his province, which was lagging behind before, jumped to 5th place in China. He also introduced the concept of rise of the Central Plains, as Henan is centrally located. In 2004, when he became the party secretary of Liaoning province, he proposed the Keqiang Index as a way to gauge economic development. The index analyzes the economy through 3 indicators: increased industrial electricity consumption, increased rail freight volume, and increased medium and long-term bank loans. Since its introduction, it has been recognized by many international institutions, including Citibank. 10 years ago, Li Keqiang had already started to face the many ills of China's rapid economic development, but he could still maintain the situation. 10 years later, China's economy is said to be terminally ill. In the face of the current economic predicament, what he can do is to stabilize the fundamentals in his own words. At the 20th Congress, all the officials of the League faction are kicked out of the CCP power center. Li Keqiang and Wang Yang may have been played by Xi's faction and Jiang's group altogether, but it cannot be ruled out that these market-oriented officials have decided not to get involved in the muddy waters anymore. Li Keqiang knows the reality of China's economy and how difficult it is, and of course Wang Yang knows it too. Even if the two of them are reappointed to the Standing Committee, surrounded by the Standing Committee of Xi's camp, not only would they be unable to accomplish anything, but they might also be uncomfortable that it would make sense for them to choose to walk away. On the podium of the 20th Congress, they looked as if nothing had happened to them. They didn't seem upset. It's possible they have moved on from the situation. Concerning the new candidate for Premier, Li Qiang, his experience is incompatible with Li Keqiang's. He was promoted faster than a rocket, mainly by gaining the trust of his superiors as secretary to the leader. To Li Qiang, the new premier candidate, China's economic mess is like the crater of a volcano that is erupting violently. The new premier himself might feel at a loss about how to solve these problems. It'll be difficult for him to stick to his own ideas, or even have his own ideas. Some analysts believe that in the future it cannot be ruled out that Xi Jinping will in fact directly assume the authority of the premiership, while Li Qiang will actually play the role of Secretary General. The CCP's rigid political system, which has been in power for more than 70 years, has had a limited ability to correct many of its policy mistakes. Now party leader Xi Jinping will rule from the top in an echo chamber of sycophants. An echo chamber is a place where one hears only one point of view or something similar to one's own, so it's understandable that the world is pessimistic about China's economic prospects. In terms of diplomacy, since 2019, the CCP started an aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy. The CCP strengthened its military presence in the South China Sea on a large scale and forced Taiwan's living space. But these moves haven't brought the CCP a nice reputation or any authority. On the contrary, the international community has formed an alliance to contain the CCP. The deteriorating trend in Sino-US relations can no longer be reversed. For decades in the reports of successive CPC congresses, peace and development have been mentioned as the theme of the times. For example, the 18th National Congress stated that the CCP is still in a period of important strategic opportunities where it can make great achievements, and the 19th National Congress stated that it is still in a period of important strategic opportunities. But in the 20th National Congress report, such expressions have all disappeared. At the 20th National Congress, Xi Jinping reported that the CCP was facing drastic changes in the international landscape, especially external attempts to blackmail, contain, blockade, and exert maximum pressure on China, and that external attempts to suppress and contain China may escalate at any time. The report said to prepare for the storm and called on the Communist Party to continue to uphold the spirit of struggle. Xi declared that the next 5 years will be a critical period to improve the military's ability to win wars. It's foreseeable that the CCP will no longer rule out the possibility of a large-scale war in the future. Xi also included in the party constitution the phrase, "develop the spirit of struggle and strengthen the skills of struggle." This means that under Xi's leadership, the CCP will become more reckless in exporting its ideology and violating international norms. Fairness and justice are what Chinese diplomacy adheres to persistently, and daring to fight is the spiritual character of Chinese diplomacy. Perhaps Beijing will get closer to Russia. Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a so-called unlimited partnership agreement. But after the war broke out and with the Russian military losing, the Communist Party took a more cautious approach. Russian President Vladimir Putin was the first to congratulate Xi on his third term in office and said he looked forward to further development of the comprehensive partnership and strategic alliance between the two countries. Daring to fight is not just for the outside world, it's also internal. While it may appear that Xi's cronies have gained an absolute majority after the 20th National Congress, this situation has not changed the intensity of the struggle within the top brass of the CCP. We can see some signs of the future in the senior officials' declaration of an anti-corruption campaign. That is, a major purge of the officialdom will be launched in the name of the anti-corruption campaign.
坚决打赢
We are determined to win the tough and protracted battle against corruption. Corruption is a cancer to the vitality and ability of the party, and fighting corruption is the most thorough kind of self-reform. The report profoundly points out that as long as the breeding grounds and conditions for corruption still exist, the fight against corruption can't stop, not even for a minute. We must maintain high pressure and pay great attention to carry forward the system that ensures officials dare not, cannot, and will not engage in corruption. One consequence of Xi's dominance is that he can no longer pass the buck to others, and as problems increase, Xi will have less room to dodge responsibility. What the Standing Committee and members of the Politburo elected at the 20th Congress have in common is they are trusted or considered loyal by Xi Jinping, and they are completely subservient to him. Obviously, the loyalty of his subordinates is an important prerequisite for the sense of political security that Xi hopes to achieve. But the absolute loyalty Xi hopes for doesn't exist, and the loyalty he now enjoys can only be loyalty wrapped in lies and flattery, and loyalty in exchange for interest or out of fear. Whether the senior officials of the League faction are kicked out or voluntarily quit, they are no longer allies of Xi's faction. Anti-Xi forces will only grow, not decline, in number, and the phenomena of lying flat, doing nothing, and slacking off will be common among those who dare not oppose Xi. With the traps set by Xi's biggest enemies, the Jiang faction, and the obstacles they would create, it would be very difficult for the country's establishment to run smoothly. This is a clear sign that the communist regime has sunk into deeper decline.